Hey, y'all, it's your girl, Coach Christal, and I am so excited to be here with you today. I know it's been a long time since we've done one of these People on Purposes or Wisdom Wednesdays, but I was preparing for 3V, which, if you don't know, is the 3V Women's Conference, Vision, Value, and Voice, May 30th through June 1st. And I started talking to a lot of women who had been thinking about adding a coaching or adding a therapy integration to their own personal development. And I have a client who's an amazing therapist. And I thought to myself, why don't we tell them how we think about the conjunction or the departures between therapy and coaching? So today on People on Purpose, we're going to talk to Wyneshia Hicks, and we're going to discuss some of the gaps, some of the connections, and then some of the transitions and transformations that we've seen in our relationship together as client and therapist, and also as entrepreneurs who serve people. So please help me welcome Wyneshia Hicks. Hey.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. It is still morning, right? It is still morning. Yes, let's do this.
I did have to check.
Yes, right. Congratulations. So Wyneshia, real quick, just tell the people who you are, what you do as a therapist, the style of therapy, Wise Roads to Healing. Give them a little bit of background.
All right. Well, I'm Wyneshia Hicks. I am a licensed clinical social worker in private practice. My practice is called Wise Roads to Healing. Why is that? Well, cleverly, it's my initials, but also I really believe that there are many different roads and avenues to how people heal themselves. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I am a DBT therapist, which stands for dialectical behavior therapy. It is a cognitive behavior therapy and a behavioral specific behavior that typically uses these different approaches to help folks who are like highly depressed, suicidal, maybe self-harming. And so, really helping folks learn how to engage with the life that they're living so that they agree to continue living that life.
Yeah, that's good. So you and I met years ago in different things. So there's a lot of letters behind Wyneshia's name. One of those letters, 3 of those letters we share, and those letters are MFA, right? So not only are you a licensed therapist, but you also went to school and got a Master of Fine Arts degree. And I just want to say that because I think some people miss the opportunity to do the thing they love while doing the thing they do. Right. So let's just talk a little bit about what it means to have both of those ways of thinking inside your practice.
That's great. Actually, I talk about this a little bit with my clients. A lot of times my clients find me because of the MFA. Mm-hmm. So they'll Google me or they look me up or someone has made a reference and they'll say, this person has a dance degree. And so often who I sit in front of are creatives, artists who are trying to sort of balance their like artistic creative selves with the sort of chaos of their emotions. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, one of the reasons why I have my MFA before my MSW is because I felt grounded in dance. Like dance was incredibly therapeutic for me. I started in high school. Some might call that late. I call it perfection. Mm-hmm. I knew myself a lot better at the time. So I wasn't just like following a teacher around, but I really found peace and healing and growth in my dance career. Mm-hmm. So when I decided to go off to college, there was like not a question that I was going to follow that path. And it really liberated me and taught me a lot of things about myself, the community, what was most important to me. And so as I, moved through that, I found myself also being the person who people came to for advice. Mm-hmm. What do you think about this? What should I do? They didn't pick me for this piece. Like this person threw me out of their thesis concert. What do I do? And I would find myself in corners with people stretching and talking about how they could like kind of rebound from that. And so, and the overlap to me is that, there is no dance without healing. And there is limited healing in some ways without involving your body in the work.
Yeah. So Wyneshia, we've worked together kind of in a client coach relationship for the last 4 years. And you and I have come up with this definition, right, that we talk about all the time in session with other people, that coaching, that therapy is about excavation and coaching is about navigation, right? Yeah. And so some people can do those things simultaneously. Some people cannot, right? Some people, it doesn't help to try to bring up things and move them along simultaneously. So let's talk a little bit about maybe if you have a personal anecdote to share how this worked for you knowing what you know, coming from where you come from, has been able to excavate and navigate towards, your own vision and dreams?
So, I think how we came up with this sort of between us was me kind of talking a little bit about having come to the work, feeling like I'm a therapist. I'm trained. I know how my brain works. I know what to do. I know how to, and then finding sort of these stumbling blocks, right? Like I have these things I'm trying to do and somehow, I'm not getting through, and I've done therapy, right? So I've been in therapy. I've been the patient, the client, and I do therapy as the therapist. And I just found that when I, came into the work with you of the visioning, it sort of, the whole purpose to me of thinking about like navigation was I was going through all this like digging deep and what is this and where's this coming from and what do you, and then sort of like sitting here like, okay, yes, of course, my therapist was like, and do this next. However, I still found that like there was just something missing from the direction, right? Like, okay, do this, but how? How do I do this? What do I look for? How do I know if this is the right thing? And so what I found in the work with you was just the guidance of like, what is your inner self calling for? What is your connection, to the higher power universe around you? What's your spiritual grounding? And spiritual is not always religion, but like what's your connection to something bigger? That was missing in my therapy. There was no conversation about that. So joining all the like digging out, right, this sort of excavation and saying, okay, now we have all this topsoil off. Well, now we have all this like second layer excavation. Here's a road. Let's pave this road with that. And that to me has, when I started, I was working for someone else. And I was like kind of comfortable doing that. But some of my like all this therapy work I had done did not launch me out of that into my own business, but tapping into my real inner desires, my inner like longings, that helped me say, oh, and then your guidance of like these systems is, oh, this is how you go. Oh, this is the GPS. Oh, the GPS says, go here, make this turn. And once you make that turn, then you'll see the opening of the road.
Yeah. That's really great because I think all of us high functioning women, all of us women who have achieved some level of success, all of us who people call our name and we respond a certain way, right? We solve the problem. We have sometimes just kind of clouded our perception of ourselves and said, okay, we're done growing, or we got it all figured out, or we know how to do what we're doing, so we don't need to know anything else, right? And then what it brings back for me is this idea of what the type of therapy that you specialize in is that as we continue to press down the desire of the other women who are inside of us, of the other visionaries who are trying to get out, and we kind of tamper them down with the ideas of safety, the ideas of success, the ideas of stability, right? The fear of trying, right? We kind of push them down. And then we do find ourselves in this depressive state because we've been pressing these deeper longings down so long that we've forgotten what it is we would really love. I mean, I think what we're trying to do, both of us in our work, is really a call to remembrance, right? And in my experience, working with high functioning people or, clients all over, is that is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Right. The work of transformation is not the hard part. The remembering who it is you said you were before you got the titles and the letters behind your name and people started, recognizing you for a certain thing or being a certain way, right? So how do we get people back to remembering?
So, I think there is two things. So one is remembering who you said you were. Over here. One is remembering who you said you were, and the other is remembering who you are. Right? So that whatever the thing is that was driving you, my thoughts, driving you to take the step over into the thing you say you are, whether that's a career path or whatever, right? That is the thing that I think we often lose track of.
Right.
And I was thinking about this conversation about excavation and navigation. And I like did a Google search. I was like, what is excavation? And they talk about these 3 layers, right? Like topsoil excavation, which is like just the surface, the things that seem like really well put together.
Yeah, I took a day off and got a pedicure.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And then they talk about the earth excavation, right?
Mhm.
So when you're doing the earth excavation, things are not so well put together. Like,
Yeah.
so it's I think the word they used was like unconsolidated, right? So it's like
Uh-huh.
it's all over the place. And so
Yeah.
now you have to say, well, what happens when I take the day off? What, and when I get the pedicure, what actually shows up? Like, do I even allow that to show up? Because
Mhm.
really, I'm holding myself still in a box because I know I have to go back to work or I have to do this other thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the third layer they talk about is this rock excavation, which
Mhm.
the phrasing is requires specialized equipment,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
Specialized equipment. And so when I think a little bit about like, how do we really dig deep into figure out like what actually will release us,
Mhm.
leave us, what
Yeah.
actually will do that. And so to be able to, I think, answer that question, you had to go back over here.
Yeah.
What drove you, right? Like what was that origination of
Yeah.
like the sprout, like, oh, it's this thing. And
Mhm.
now I'm going to turn that thing into like either a career thing or I go to school to do this. And then
Yeah.
that's when we start to build these layers of our externalized identity.
Mhm.
But our internalized identity is on that first side of the stage, so to speak. It's like, who was I before
Yeah.
I started, lobbing on all these layers, before people started giving them to me?
Mhm.
Mother, student,
Yeah.
lawyer, helper,
Mhm.
taskmaster, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So really going back a little bit and back meaning in, right? Like
Yes.
this is forward, this is back. I'm not talking
Yes.
about back there.
Right. Not
Back is
past, but
here.
right,
Not
like
That's
the
correct.
actual present. Yeah.
That's correct. What
Yeah.
is really driving you? I think
Mhm.
that's one of the ways that I try to help people find for themselves. Like, you won't know, what really will heal you until you remember who, in fact, you are.
Yeah, and you won't get to that remembering in the same cycle of your doing.
That's right.
Right. And so we're joking y'all a little bit about like this example of this topsoil being this pedicure. But if you're at the pedicure, if you're at the spa, right, and you're getting a pedicure, and the whole time you're answering emails on your phone, there's no excavation happening, right? That we're talking about the times where you have the courage to sit with yourself,
Yeah.
right, and notice where your mind is going, to be able to grab some of those thoughts and name them from where their origination point is, not from where they're taking you, not the ticker tape of things to do, but when all of those things are said and done, who are you sitting with and who is this person in front of you and what is she capable of that you haven't allowed her to do yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does she need? Right? Like,
Yes.
what is she asking for? Like, what is the breath that breathes you? Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, and normally it's not going into like your law firm and then being in the courtroom, right? It's
Yeah.
what happens when you're in there.
Mhm.
Happens when you're in there, you're like, oh, I am feeling really worthy. I'm feeling really, really confident.
Yeah.
So that inner side, that inner you is craving confidence, something that's a
Mhm.
confidence booster,
Yeah.
something that is a worthiness booster.
Yeah.
And for some people, it might seem like the pedicure.
Yeah.
It may seem like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what I do. I go get my massage.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
what is that serving? Right.
Uh-huh.
And if you are doing this, you're not fully immersed, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not really in the moment. And then
Mhm.
you won't really know what you're trying to serve if you're actually not dropping down, paying
Yeah.
attention.
And many of us are trying to schedule the break because we are trying to give other people a break. Right. So, let's just remember, right? Whatever we're doing for other people is really a response of how we want to be loved ourselves. Right. And so sometimes that self care, I don't really do self care. That soul care practice, that what we're trying to do, we're practicing doing something that we really would love to receive from someone. Right. And so that idea of self love is about giving to the self, giving to the woman, giving to the person you are, the thing that you think you long for from someone else, or just stopping yourself and giving yourself the gift you're giving other people. Right. And just noticing, how many times do I show up for other people and I really just want someone to show up for me? How many times do I go to the store and pick up little odds and ends because I know somebody else needs them, but I really just want somebody to pick up my odds and ends, right? Like, how, and then because what I want people to also notice, right, when we're talking about this idea of therapy, coaching, the ways that they go together and the way that they diverge is sometimes what you just said about confidence is the whole issue, right? Because many of us now, this is Wynesia's specialty, y'all. So I'm going to say what I say, and she can say, she's heard me say it before. But there are tons of people who during the pandemic got a therapist because it was trendy. And they started going to these therapy sessions and talking out loud what their grievances were without telling the whole story. And the therapist had been trying to treat the I'm going to call it a lie, because an incomplete information is a lie, right? Trying to treat the lie, and they're wondering why nothing is changing in their lives, right? And so this idea that when we're not honest with ourselves, we can't be honest with other people, and keeping your agreements with yourself is the real root of confidence, not doing what other people think you need to do on the outside. That doesn't build your confidence. That might build your integrity because you keep your word. But on the inside, if you're not keeping your word with yourself, then your confidence is lacking.
Absolutely. Especially because most times, right, the agreements we make with ourselves are based on our values, right? Our values and our value. And so if you have, normally we have, I mean, typically we have the values, right? And we think we know what they are.
Yeah.
However, we can start to get shifted and begin doing things that are not in alignment with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're gonna maybe sit and say some things that are part of the story. As a therapist, like, my job, that to be 100% honest, has been enhanced by the work in Steps and Stages, right? It allows me to ask, as you say, a better question.
Yeah.
So now I can ask a couple, like some other questions that help people's, I've never heard that question before. Yeah. And then the answer is like, I'm not sure. I never thought about that. Well, what you been doing this whole time? What you been talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Because there are clients, you know this personally. There are clients that I have in Steps and Stages that I have to fire. Because I'm like, listen, I'm happy to talk to you, but we've done the work. Now it's your job to do the work, right? Like, I'm not a coach who's like, yeah, just keep sitting in here paying me and we'll hang out. No, absolutely not. That's just not who I am as a person, right? Like, that my integrity, the line draws there, right? Like, money can't make me deceive you into thinking you're still growing. That's just not it, right? So the idea here is that we have to find our own boundaries so that our boundaries turn into a new belief, because the belief is the only thing that's going to make you take action, right?
And that's sort of the place where I think that the intersection, in a way, right? So I think that a lot of times a person's belief is tainted by the growing up process.
Yeah.
And, by the education process. Sometimes those beliefs are like, they start to pull away because of all these other systems.
Yeah.
So, for me, what's super helpful about the coaching process is it not realigns you. It does that, but it reintroduces you. It reintroduces you to like, what actually is the belief that you have, right? Then I think in order to get realigned with that belief, sometimes you do need the therapy to kind of do some more excavating around what happened to that belief, right? Like, what interrupted that? What did you allow to interrupt that? Because the other thing is, I think people sometimes have a difficulty saying it was me. Me.
Yeah, I let it go. Yes.
Maybe a person did a thing, or the professor said a thing, but I allowed that thing. Again, sometimes an unpopular comment, and I'm gonna make it because here I am, right?
Yeah.
People can do all kind of things to you, right? I think I heard it at this conference I was just at. It said the X amount of water in the world can't drown you if you don't let it get inside. Right? So like, you can do something to me or say something to me that feels hurtful to me, but it is on me to decide to hold it and to let it take root.
Yeah.
And to stay hurt. I can't maybe control that I got hurt, but
right.
I can control if I stay hurt.
Yeah.
I think that's the other part where I think that's where there's a nice overlap, right? You get the coaching of like, okay, so that happens. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do anything because I'm traumatized and these things happen to me.
Yeah.
And then the therapy can come in and say, well, let's dig that up a little bit, because you got to
Yeah.
get back in that ring
Right.
of visioning. You got to get back in that ring of being
Yeah.
the person who takes control of the thing, because you are the person who takes control of the thing.
Because you're the only person who can actually do something about it.
That's correct.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I love the work we do, Wyneshia. I think you know that I'm so proud of you. I mean, hey, when this woman came to Seven Stages, honey, she was working for somebody else. Now she's a CEO. Ha ha. Okay. She has makes way more money by herself than she did work for somebody else. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not trying to toot her horn. I'm just saying, right? Toot toot toot. Right. Doing the work, and I mean, her health transition, her body transition, her transition into parenthood, like all the things that we created together as the vision for your life, Wyneshia. I'm just going to say publicly that I'm super proud of you. I can't imagine doing this work without being a part of your pathway, because I'm learning. We learn from each other. Right. And I'm so happy that you're going to be at 3V. If y'all don't have your tickets to 3V, you need to jump over right now to 3vwomen.com, vision, value, and voice. We are going to turn up the volume on your own self-discovery so that you leave with a blueprint. And for those of you who have been to Vision Camp Live or Vision Camp Virtual before, this is like Vision Camp on steroids. Yeah. So just be ready, right? We're starting every morning with an amazing Pilates conditioning instructor who just happens to be a former Broadway performer in Wicked. And we're going to have some breakfast after that. We come back into the keynote session, start blueprinting your vision immediately with session 1 on Friday, going into the rubric of how you then master that life. Then we're going to have a little, it's going to be a heavy day. That's already heavy. So then we're going to have a little reception. We'll have a little couple cocktails, get to know each other. The next day, we're going to dive right back into value with Christy Rutherford, and then thinking about some other breakout sessions about personal branding and what you need to know before you quit your job, if that's going to be a part of your process. A lot of things are in flux right now. We are at the stage of moving the big rocks around, right? So you got to know that just because the big rocks are shifting around in your industry, it doesn't mean that you don't have your own personal renovation to do. Do not get bowled over by other people's realignment, right? So we just want to make sure that you have the tools you need to not only be successful, but to love the success you're living. Yeah. So look, we hope to see you there. 3vwomen.com. Wyneshia, thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate you getting up this morning and hanging. I know you're probably busy anyway, but thanks. We appreciate you jumping on this morning. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Love you too. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See y'all later.